Top officials from India and the United States are holding talks in New Delhi for the so-called 2+2 dialogue. That's where global and regional security issues, including the Israel-Hamas war, are top of the agenda.
Indeed, this trip is part of an intensive period of American diplomacy in the Indo-Pacific. We are living, as Secretary of Defense said, in an incredibly complex and difficult moment. No shortage of shared challenges that require our attention, require our determination, require our collaboration. And it only underscores how vital the U.S.-India partnership is and how important our efforts are to further strengthen it.
In the 2+2, we will undertake, as we have done before, a comprehensive overview of cross-cutting strategic defense and security ties, technology and supply chain collaborations, and people-to-people exchanges.
India praised a new chapter in its relationship with the US following Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Washington in June, as well as President Joe Biden's trip to New Delhi for the G20 summit just 2 months ago. While Mr. Blinken highlighted that defense cooperation was a key pillar of ties between these two countries.
In spite of various emerging geopolitical challenges, we need to keep our focus on the important and long-term issues.
In the face of urgent global challenges, it's more important than ever that the world's two largest democracies exchange views, find common goals, and deliver for our people. We've made impressive gains in building our major defense partnership over the past year, and that will help us contribute even more together to the cause of peace and stability.
The 2+2 dialogue comes as Washington seeks to bolster New Delhi as a regional counterweight to Beijing. This just days before President Joe Biden is expected to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit that will take place in San Francisco. And for more, let's cross live to Ishan Garg. He's in New Delhi for us. Ishan, what's been the focus of today's talks and what are both sides hoping to achieve at the end of all of this?
Well, the key focus has been, of course, the defense ties, which has been described now as a key pillar of the US-India relationship. And this hasn't always been the case. India-US ties have earlier relied on shared economic values and trade and people-to-people relationship. But all of those things the two sides said that are still very important. But defense is now taking the top spot among the priorities between the two countries. So there were discussions around how India and US can cooperate further. We have seen earlier this year that the two countries have already signed agreements, one of which is co-development of jet engines in India. Another one is on India purchasing military drones from the US. Both of these being called landmark moments by analysts here. But apart from that, a lot of regional challenges that the two countries have described as shared challenges were also discussed. This was the first time since the Israel-Hamas war started that India and the US have had a chance to come face to face in these discussions. Now, India and US both are huge stakeholders in the Middle Eastern Economic Corridor that was announced during the G20 earlier this year. And both sides have discussed that issue as well, with analysts saying that for India, there are concerns that its investments in the Middle East could be compromised. There were, of course, discussions around the war in Ukraine as well. And the two sides says that they've also discussed developments in the Indo-Pacific region.
Ishan, both the United States and India have their priorities on this. I mean, they're both keen to counter China's influence in the Indo-Pacific region. What are they likely to cover on this front?
Well, one of the first things that's happening between India and the US is with the defense deals key in focus. Many analysts are saying that that is one way for the West to not only wean India off of Russian arms, but also help it bolster its military capabilities to take on Beijing. India and China have been locked in a border standoff for the past 3 years when clashes first broke out along the Himalayan borders of India and China. So China remains remains one of the biggest subjects of discussion between India and the US. And this comes at a time when President Joe Biden is going to be meeting with Mr. Xi Jinping in San Francisco later this month. It's going to be a meeting that Mr. Modi is going to skip. But despite that, China does remain a big subject of discussion between the two countries. What's also another big subject of discussion in the current circumstances is India's relationship with Canada, which has suffered a huge blow since Canada alleged that Indian actors had a role to play in the killing of a Sikh separatist leader.
Ishan, thank you for that. Ishan Garg there in New Delhi.